Hi there, and welcome to Flip the Script Season 1, Episode 7, The Push-Pull Method and How to Write Irresistible Emails Using It. My name is Beck Holland. I'm the CEO and founder of Flip the Script. Before we get going here, I'd like you to do me a favor. Go to flipthescript.co and make sure you download the deck so you can follow along at each step of the way. But without further ado, let's go ahead and push you along to the content. So let's break it down into 3 different pieces of an agenda before we jump in. So pretty simple here. I'm going to weatherman it here and step out of the way so you can read the content. There are 3 different pieces of the agenda. Number 1, we're going to define what the push-pull method is. So we can talk about what it is and what is the goal of the push-pull method within your prospecting. Number 2, where does it fit in? Where should I put it into outreach to make sure that my prospects feel a little bit of a reprieve and that they want to respond to my messaging? And number 3, we're going to land on a few examples where I can show you within outreach as a sales engagement tool where I was putting them in these templates or within these shell sequences so that you make sure that your reps can deploy them seamlessly and get more responses than ever before. So first, let's jump in with what is it? Oop, never mind. Back to the slide. There's 5 pieces to what it really is whenever I'm taking a step back and looking at the push-pull method. But essentially, it's a very high-pressure situation if you're sending someone an email out of the blue and you're asking them for something really directly. At the same time, you need to have an ask because you need to be very clear on what you want. So the push-pull method is in the last line of any kind of messaging, whether that's a text message or whether that's an email that you're sending to your prospect, that you basically pull back on in the email to give the reader an emotional reprieve. So you want to give them the sense that basically there's no pressure in the situation, even if you don't get what you want out of the situation. So whenever we're prospecting in, we're not prospecting in just for fun or to be benevolent or to talk to someone. We're typically prospecting in because we want something. We either want a chance to prove our value, we want a chance to get in front of someone, we want to pitch our product and ultimately close a deal. And so the push-pull method is basically a way in the last line of the email after you've asked for something in your CTA to be able to say that either way, no matter what, if they give you what you asked for or not, that basically you're a big fan of them so that it takes the pressure off of the situation, making it more likely for them to respond. So your body craves balance in everything that you do. So I've asked before to a couple of different people that I know, do you like the image of someone like Jennifer Aniston, for instance, drinking a beer? And they say, yeah, I love that image. And I say, why do you like that image? They said, well, because she's typically very fit. The responses I get is she's very, very fit. You wouldn't see her drinking kind of a beer image, maybe like a white wine spritzer or something like that. Not to judge you, Jennifer, if you're watching. But, you just wouldn't see her doing that in her normal day-to-day. But because she's so fit and she's usually very well put together, the image of her drinking a beer is very, very balanced because she's doing something out of the ordinary that makes her a little bit more human. So in point number 2, whenever you're talking to your buyer and you're asking for something, if you give them another flavor of like, hey, I want this thing, but if you don't give it to me, it's absolutely okay. And there's no pressure here. You don't have to respond to me for me to still value what you're doing. It communicates to your buyer a genuine sense of care on your behalf. So if I'm doing any kind of personalized outreach, basically I'm talking about someone's work and something they've done in specific, right? So whether that's an article that they wrote or that's engaged content that they've engaged with or something that they wrote about themselves on LinkedIn, it's a very personalized and a very personal approach. So you want to communicate that like in either case scenario, you really value this person and you really value their work, because if you're not careful, if you're personalized and you ask for something and go away if they don't give it to you, you basically communicate to them that you didn't care to begin with, you just wanted this thing. And it's kind of a shot on that person in specific because you were so personalized in your messaging. So the push-pull is a good way to communicate that you care about the prospect either way, which in any case scenario, whether they respond or not, is a good feeling to be giving off. Number 3, it aims for balance of the messaging within your flavors. So I almost want you to think of, there are certain kind of foods that when they're trying to go for product addiction, they basically go for the balance of 2 flavors. So I want you to think peanut butter or think Nutella, but they basically study and break down the 2 different flavors of salty and sweet and spend a lot of time researching what is the perfect crux or balance between both of those flavors to cause you to want more of them. So think of opposing characteristics, seemingly opposingly characteristic, like someone who's strong and someone who's really nurturing, or someone who's really direct and someone who's really nice. When you see those two kinds of flavors being intertwined in the same person, it can cause a lot of personality addiction within someone of like, typically they're very, very strong. But for instance, in this case scenario, they shed a tear and they got really emotional about something. So it really moves someone whenever someone displays two different seemingly opposing characteristics within the same human being. So what you want to do with the push-pull method is you want to push for something, when you're saying like, hey, will you give me time Wednesday at 2? But then you want to pull back and give them that opposing balancing flavor of, even if they don't give you this thing, that you're still a big fan of theirs. So it can cause addiction to your emails. The fourth point is iron hammer within a velvet glove. Again, within CTAs or call to action, I've seen a lot of reps ask the question of, well, should I do a soft CTA? Because I don't want to be mean to my prospect and I don't want to have this harsh flavor to my email. So you'll see a lot of emails where they're like, hey, I saw that you downloaded this content. Did you have any questions? The prospect's like, no, I didn't. And they're like, okay, cool. Well, see ya. It was nice meeting you. And the agenda of the call really was for the SDR to call in and set the meeting, but they called on the premise of, did you have any questions about this content download? Because they wanted to soften the blow. The prospect's super confused. They say, no, I didn't have any questions. And so the SDR basically hangs up the phone. So in anything, whether that's business or whether that's personal life or whether that's, trying to go for a promotion or that's trying to go for a job or is trying to help someone, you want to be very, very clear about the rules of engagement and what you want before you begin. So whenever I'm reaching out to someone, instead of just trying to delay something or say like, I'm going to ask them all these questions and yada, 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 you want to be very direct. I mean, not in a harsh way, but you want to be direct in the first message with what it is that you're after. So that's the iron hammer portion or iron fist. But then you want to soften it with the velvet glove of saying like, hey, I'm going to go for a direct CTA so that you know what I want and there's no confusion here, like a soft CTA. But then you can also put a softening statement. It allows you to put in some language that shows your prospect that you find value in them and that you hope that they're well in any case scenario. And the last point is that it gives you what I call the snowball effect, which is a fun story. I am from the DFW area. I live in California right now, but I am from Texas. And a lot of times I go back to visit my parents. So that's actually where I am right now while we're filming. So when I'm staying with my parents, they have this dog named Snowball. Snowball is a white lab, super, super cute, and I absolutely love spending time with her. So when I come home, typically my eating schedule is I'm a late night eater. So I eat right before I go to bed. I know everyone's going to lecture me for the health side, but before you do, let me finish the story. I eat egg whites before I go to bed. And so I cook egg whites somewhere around 11 to 11:30. And I go upstairs and I take this plate up and I eat these egg whites when I watch TV. So I'm watching TV and I eat these egg whites and slowly, this was about a year ago, I noticed that Snowball would come up the stairs because my parents had been giving her the plates after dinner. And so she saw me eating egg whites and saw the opportunity and thought, okay, I can clean this plate for her. So night after night, I would give it to her. I'd finish my eggs and then I would give it to her so that she could clean the plate. So night after night, I was assuming that she was just coming up the stairs simply because she wanted the eggs, but that once that thing was done, once she had finished the plate, that she was going to be out of the situation. So there was one night about 3 weeks ago where I was with Snowball. I'd given her the egg plate and I see her at the foot of my bed, basically sitting there and staring at me. And I check around and I look and I see, oh, well, there's the plate and it's clean. Like, what does she want? So I stare back at her and then I realize that she just wants to come up into the bed and she wants to snuggle with me. So I call her up there and I said, Snowball, come here. She jumps up into the bed and we sit there and we watch TV together. And I realized at that point, whether I gave her the egg plate or not, Snowball wanted to spend time with me. And it changed the way that I saw her. Now I was more apt and more willing and more excited to give her the egg plate because I knew she wasn't only there for the egg plate. She was there to spend time with me. You want to give the same feel to your prospects. You value them. You love their career, or at least that I hope that you do, and that's genuine for you. And so you want to communicate to your prospects of like, hey, I want this thing. I want this meeting. I want the shot to meet you. I want the shot to talk to you. And I want the shot to unpack your business and hear a little bit more and see if we're a fit. Like, make no mistake, I'm in sales and I have a quota that I have to hit. However, regardless of whether you give me that meeting, you give me that shot, you give me that opportunity, or you say anything back to me, either way, I really valued your work. So in the game of personalization, not that it's a game, but in the hemisphere or the realm of personalization, if I am sending someone a really personalized email and talking about their work, for instance, if you were talking about this session to me and you said like, hey, Beck, I saw you in this push-pull, method video, and then you were to immediately try to sell me your product and then send me a CTA without a push-pull on the back end, I would start thinking that the only reason that you watched this video or the only reason that you tuned into the content was to figure out a way to sell to me. So it can come off a little disingenuous. So you want to include this last statement in the push-pull in the last statement of the sentence or of the email so that it helps your prospects understand that either way, whether they give you the meeting or not, you still really value the session. So that's great. That's piece one. But where does it fit in? Where it fits in a sequence is half of the battle. So when it comes to a sequence, every sequence that I'm building within Outreach, whether that's from content downloads, webinar registrants, event attendees, executive churn, G2 buyer intent, dark funnel leads, etc., I'm building the same type of sequence and the same structure of a sequence, just with different scenarios. So content download, webinar registrant would be the difference in the front of the text whenever you're automating it in with a dynamic tag. However, the actual shell sequence and the amount of steps and what you're doing in those steps in terms of medium stay the same. So I have 16 steps over 21 days for every sequence, starting with a LinkedIn research step, 21 business days, by the way, starting with a LinkedIn research step, and then ending with 10 or finishing with 10 calls throughout the sequence and 5 emails in total. If you want to know more about the structure of a sequence, go to the session on how to incorporate personalization into a sequence. But for today's purposes, I just wanted to give you that outline because there are 5 emails within the sequence, and a great place to deploy the push-pull method is in email 1 and in email 3 because both of them are personalized. So let's go through the structure of an email, and I'll show you where I do it in those emails in specific. But in any case, if you put it in the last section of any email, it works really, really well. Whether that's a text messages, the last line is a great way to take the pressure off of whoever you're sending a message to. But let's go through email 1 and 3. So the structure of that email is the first line is going to be a personalized premise. It's going to be the longest line of your email, and it's basically going to state the reason for your outreach. The second line is going to be the medium length, and it's going to talk about everything, the value prop of your company in terms of what it means to the prospect, mapping it back to the personalization. So if you want to know how to hook the personalization to relevant, go to season 2 where I talk about how to do that. But that's the medium length, is the value prop. The third line of the email should be the CTA, which is short for the call to action, where you ask for one thing. You ask for a request for one time to unpack the content in the above agenda. This should be the shortest line of the email. And the last line of the email should be the push-pull technique. So a great one to start with is either way. So you're saying, here's who, in terms of who I am, the reason for my outreach is I saw you wrote this article on LinkedIn where you're talking about scaling teams effectively. One line that really stood out to me was you said it all comes down to great conversations. What if you can ensure all of your reps over at Drift were having great conversations with your prospects, building rapport with them within the cycle and closing more deals as a result? If you give me a shot Wednesday at 2 to unpack how VPs of sales are leveraging a tool like Chorus to drive more quota attainment across their team, then I promise we can part ways as friends if you're not impressed. Either way, keep the good content like your article coming. I'm a big fan of your team and hope you're staying safe and sane with everything going on in the world. So this is a good place where you can also incorporate any kind of pandemic language. So if you put the pandemic language in the front where you're saying like, hope you're staying safe and sane during this uncertain times, it can cause pattern recognition and make you come off as a sales rep. But this push-pull method is push-pull line is a great place to put anything. If you don't incorporate any pandemic language, then people think that you're not aware of what's going on or you're being a little tone deaf. So this is a great line where you can incorporate like either way, whether you give me the meeting or not, I'm a big fan of yours. I love the content. Make sure that it's genuine, and I hope that you're staying safe and sane with everything going on in the world. So let's give a few examples and then we'll close out. Here is an example, and I hope that you have downloaded a deck so you can see this a little more clearly. But basically, this is this is an actual sequence that I have used at my former company, Chorus. But basically, you'll see that there's a customized subject line. And within most of my sequences, I'm not just giving them a blank template and saying, write this email. I'm really giving them the structure of what an email should look like and having them tie in personalization so that I make sure I give them room to be creative, but also keep them within a couple certain bounds. So you'll see a reason for my outreach is I saw a blank where I saw this article that you wrote on LinkedIn. One line that stood out to me is blank. And I even put a comment goes here. It's a dynamic tag within outreach as a quick tip that blocks you from sending this message unless you fill it in. So it can be a really good safety net, unless you click you send accidentally. What if you could blank and it gives you the main buyer persona desire as a result? So basically gives you a structure for the hook. If you give me a shot Wednesday at 2 to unpack how, and I have the title that's dynamically tagged in here, leverages Chorus to achieve that goal, I promise I'll leave you alone if you're not impressed. Or another way that you could say that we'll do in the following email. But either way, keep the good content coming. I'm such a big fan of your team and hope you're having a great start to Q3. You're a success in mine, and then I sign it. So that's email 1. So again, this push-pull method isn't within the last line where you're saying either way, keep the good content coming. The third email, I essentially am doing the same type of infrastructure, but I'm changing up the language a little bit so they don't realize their own structure, and I'm also picking a different personalized premise. So you can see here that I said, hi, first name. The reason for my email is blank. One line that stood out to me is this. Imagine you could, as opposed to what if you could, and blank as a result. If you give me a chance Thursday at 3 to unpack how blank, leverage Chorus to achieve that goal, I promise I'll leave you alone if you're not impressed. So kind of the same type of language, but, a little bit different. In any case, keep the good content coming. I'm such a big fan of your team, and I hope you're having a great start to Q1. All the best, and then you sign it. So again, the push-pull in this case says in any case, but it's basically giving a reprieve to your buyer on the back end. So that's it, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. If you like the session, go to flipthescript.co and you can see other different videos on sales topics. And if you really, really like the session and I can pull your attention away, tag Flip the Script on LinkedIn with your top 2 takeaways so I can see what you liked. But either way, I hope you're having a great rest of your day.